Hello again, and welcome to Lesson 26 and Using Choices. We have been covering quite a lot, and we can see from this picture that it is the spelling choices that we have to think about that can make spelling tricky. The choices that have been at the beginning of the writing words and the writing sentences lessons will now be in this Using Choices film for you to check up whenever you need to. First of all, we thought about needing to understand the position of a long vowel sound, because it impacted how we spelled them. Were they at the end of a syllable, in the middle of a word, in which case there could be more than one choice, or could we hear them right at the end of a word, because that is usually a different spelling. So let's take a closer look at the ones we've covered. A, at the end of a syllable, we'd write with the letter A. Middle of a word, first choice, A consonant E. Second choice, A-I. And so far, we haven't covered the choices for the end of a word. We have gone straight to I. We've missed E out for now because of the pattern that we see for choices. I is I at the end of a syllable, and first choice in the middle of a word, I consonant E. And that's why E has been left to the end of this particular chart. It doesn't use E consonant E as the most used choice. IGH, also in the middle of a word, sometimes at the end of a word, and we'll be covering other choices for I at the end of a word soon. O, written with an O at the end of a syllable. O consonant E, first choice in the middle of a word. O-A, second choice in the middle of a word. And then U. U is written with a U at the end of a syllable. And U consonant E. And we haven't covered any other choices. E. We write it with an E at the end of a syllable. Double E is the most used. E-A. And E consonant E, the least used choice. And there will also be another choice that we'll be putting here. A lot of choices to think about, especially for the sound E. When we introduce the letter G, we also introduce the need to think about the vowel letter that came after it, A, O, and U, to decide when to say the sound G. And we had a wee story, Gaston gossiping about Gus. Basically because his name was Angus, and he didn't like the fact that Angus preferred to be called Gus. And for him, it was a good thing to gossip about. So, G is said if the letter G is followed by A, O, and U. But we would say J if the letter G was followed by E, I, or Y. And this time we had a story about Jack, who jogged and jumped at the gentle giant's gym, to remind us that J is written with a J if it's followed by A, O, or U. And then, if we heard J at the end of a one-syllable word with a short vowel sound, we wrote it D, G, E, like the word judge. And this was a good word because it had both of the spellings for J. J with a J at the beginning, J written D-G-E at the end. And judging their outdoor gym activities gave them 10 out of 10. The full version we've just looked at has only just been introduced. You may prefer to use this version, where we just think about Jack, who jogs and jumps for the letter J, and the gentle giant at the gym for the letter G, and D-G-E. They were judged to have 10 out of 10. And we could have used our fingers as a prompt if we tipped our hands sideways. We would say G. If a G, and there we have a capital G, was followed by A, U, and O, and we would say J if it was followed by E, I, and Y. And we could do finger spelling, tapping that first finger and then the finger next to it for E and I. Turn your hand over and place your finger to make the downstroke of the Y. For the sound K, we have the king putting the kettle on to make the cop in the cap a cup of tea. A reminder that if we hear K followed by E or I, and occasionally Y, we would write the letter K. If it was followed by A, O, or U, we wrote the letter C, and CK at the end of a one-syllable word with a short vowel sound. Capital C to go round A, U, and O for the sound K. And to know to say the sound S, we could finger spell E, I, and Y as our reminder. And here are all the choices we've covered for end of a one-syllable word with a short vowel sound. Double L, double F, double S, CK, and DGE. 2 more spelling choices to come. They're included in our football story. The purple words include a spelling choice we haven't covered yet, but we will be. So this is your preview. We stood at the edge of the pitch to watch the match. Mick kicked a whiz of a pass, but the ball hit the post. Then it bounced off into the goal. Enjoy that story as a reminder. And for the sound F, where our teeth are at the back of our bottom lip, we spell it with an F. At the end of a one-syllable word with a short vowel sound, double F. And you may be thinking, we've just covered that. But we also need PH, the spelling for F. It's in quite a few words, but one of the most common is phone. And, of course, photo. I think that would probably be one to treasure. Thank you for joining me, and do look over these choices by watching the film anytime you choose. It will now be included in each of our Section 2 lessons. Do you think we may have more choices to add? That is a definite yes.